Today's story comes from Chinese live stream where people calling for advice about their love lives. The first story is about a woman whose husband has been having an affair for more than 3 years. Most people would be probably thinking about divorce, but that's not what she wants. Instead, she wants to know how can she get him to end the affair and come back to the family. Here's what happened. The wife is 43 years old and works as a fitness instructor. She earns about $40,000 a year. She's been married to her husband for more than 20 years, and together they have 2 children. Their son is 16 years old, and their daughter is 9 years old. Her husband is 50 years old and owns a successful construction company. According to the wife, he earns about $400,000 a year. For those unfamiliar with China, both of them are doing quite well financially, especially the husband. From the outside, they look like a successful family, but behind closed doors, things hadn't been going well for a long time. The couple had been sleeping in separate bedrooms for years. Most of their conversations revolved around the children, their responsibilities, or his work. The emotional connection between them had slowly disappeared. Then, around 2022, things began to change. The husband's business started doing very well. As he made more money, he began spending more time socializing with other business owners. According to the wife, many people in that circle openly kept mistresses. And eventually, her husband started an affair with a woman who worked at his company. The mistress was 33 years old and worked at her husband's company. Her job involved client relations, business dinners, and network events. According to the wife, she was very good at keeping clients happy and helping bring in new business. The husband apparently believed she played an important role in the company's success. At first, it may have looked like nothing more than a professional relationship. But over time, things became much more personal, and this wasn't exactly a cheap affair. According to the wife, the husband bought the mistress a house, a car, luxury handbags, jewelry, and regularly transferred money to her. Altogether, she estimated that he had spent nearly $400,000 on the affair. At this point, I was thinking, sir, are you having an affair? Or launch a startup? Because that's a serious investment. The husband didn't just spend money on her. He also reportedly promised to divorce his wife and marry her. In fact, he even showed her documents related to a divorce agreement. Not surprisingly, the mistress believed she had a future with him. For years, the wife had no idea what was happening. Then she started to notice something strange. Her husband suddenly began making frequent trips to Hong Kong and Macau, not once in a while, several times every month. Eventually, she became suspicious. Around the same time, the mistress even started following the wife's social media account, which honestly surprised me. I mean, follow the wife on the social media. That's a level of confidence I wasn't expecting. One day, the wife noticed that some of the places her husband visited matched the locations appearing in the mistress' social media posts. That was enough to raise serious suspicions. So she hired private investigators. And honestly, they didn't have to work very hard. On the very first day, they allegedly caught the husband and the mistress taking wedding photos together. Wedding photos? I mean, I can't imagine what it would feel like to see something like that. At that point, the wife probably had all the answers she needed. But the story gets even stranger. During the investigation, investigators also captured evidence of the mistress spending time with other men. There were photos, hotel records, and video footage, which means the husband wasn't the only person keeping secrets. Apparently, everyone in this story had something to hide. The wife eventually confronted her husband with everything she had discovered. At first, he appeared willing to repair the marriage. He took back some of the gifts he had given the mistress and promised to return the family. He also offered to pay his wife about $85,000 every year as compensation. That's a lot of money in China, actually. But according to the wife, something felt off. He wasn't acting like a man relieved to save his marriage. He looked heartbroken, almost like someone who had just gone through a painful breakup. That was when the wife realized something important. Even if he was physically present, emotionally he was still attached to the mistress. The stress became overwhelming. According to the wife, her health began to suffer. It's really sad. No cheating man is worth damage your health for. But most people can't control their emotions like that. On September 2nd, the husband promised to end the affair and return to the family. For a brief moment, it looked like the marriage might survive. But things didn't improve. The couple continued arguing. If I were the wife, I wouldn't keep arguing. He doesn't love me anymore. I'd just focus on protecting my money. Then, about a month later, everything changed. In early October, the husband suddenly began talking about divorce. Just weeks earlier, he had promised to come back. Now he seemed determined to leave. The relationship quickly became more hostile. Lawyers eventually became involved. The wife felt legal action to recover money and assets she believed had been given to the mistress using marital property. At the same time, another conflict was developing behind the scenes. The mistress was becoming increasingly frustrated. After all, she had been promised marriage for years. She had seen divorce documents. She believed she would eventually become his wife. Instead, she was still waiting. At one point, she reportedly demanded a large compensation payment from the husband. But even then, he continued to promise that he would eventually marry her. That's crazy. He knew she was cheating too, and he still kept giving money and making promises. The situation only became more complicated during China's mandatory divorce waiting period. The husband continued seeing the mistress. That's kind of funny. In China, there's no waiting period for marriage. If marriage had a 30-day cooling off period too, I bet fewer people would get married. According to the wife, he made very little effort to hide it. Eventually, the marriage deteriorated even further. The arguments became so intense that the husband moved out. At that point, most people would probably assume the marriage was over. But surprisingly, that wasn't the end of the story. After Chinese New Year, the wife decided to change her approach. She stopped arguing, she stopped bringing up the affair. She stopped questioning him about the mistress. Now she is starting to play it smart. Gradually, the relationship became less hostile. The husband was willing to spend time with the children again. Sometimes the four of them would go out together as a family. He would help arrange hotels for trips and buying things for the children. From the outside, it almost looked like things were improving. There was just one problem. He still refused to move back home. Then a new conflict erupted. The couple got into another argument about their children's education. During the fight, the wife revealed that she knew where the mistress was living and had evidence showing the husband's visit to the building. Shortly afterwards, the mistress found out, and according to the wife, the mistress was furious. Late at night, she allegedly called and sent messages insulting the wife. Then things got even stranger. A friend of the mistress later contacted the wife. According to that friend, much of the mistress' anger wasn't really directed at the wife. It was directed at the husband. He had promised marriage. He had shown her divorce papers. Yet years later, she was still waiting. And honestly, that seems to be the central problem in this entire story. The wife wants him back. The mistress wants a commitment. And the husband doesn't seem too willing to make either woman happy. He doesn't take responsibility for anyone. And I don't think he truly loves either woman. He only loves himself. When the wife shared all of this on the live stream, the relationship coach had a very different perspective. The coach believed that constantly confronting the husband with evidence was only making him more defensive. Instead, she advised the wife to focus on protecting her legal rights while keeping communication with him as calm as possible. Coach also believed the husband was carrying a certain amount of guilt. Rather than attacking him, she suggested allowing that guilt to work in the wife's favor. Her advice was to stop treating every conversation like a battle over the affair, focus on the children, focus on practical matters, and create a relationship that feels peaceful rather than confrontational. The coach argued that the mistress was under increasing pressure because she wanted a clear commitment, while the husband seemed unwilling to make a final decision. In other words, the biggest conflict might eventually happen between those two, not between the husband and the wife. Whether that's true remains to be seen. For now, the husband is stuck between two women. The wife is still hoping to save her marriage. The mistress is still waiting for a promise to be fulfilled. And the husband seems unable to make a final decision. So what do you think? Can this marriage still be saved? Or is the wife still holding on to something that's already over? To be honest, in China, many women choose to stay in marriage like this, especially among the elder generation. Many say they are doing it for their children. And in this case, the husband is also very wealthy. So some people might see some practical reasons to stay. On the other hand, many would argue that leaving someone who constantly hurts you is bad for your mental health and happiness. Of course, everyone makes their own choices, and we can only respect that. But what would you do if you were the wife? Would you stay or would you get divorced? Let me know in the comments. And that's it for today's story. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.